Child asks for a plate of food from the rich old man, promises to pay when he grows up. Walter Thompson adjusted his glasses as he watched the activity in the town square of Santa Barbara, quietly enjoying his lunch. At 72, the retired businessman maintained his solitary routine, oblivious to the curious glances of passers-by who recognized his elegant figure. That's when he felt a timid presence beside him. A skinny boy, no more than 10 years old, stood a few feet from the table, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the nearly untouched plate. "Excuse me, sir," the boy whispered, his voice shaky with shyness. "Could you spare a little of your food? I promise I'll pay you back when I grow up." Walter looked up over his glasses, studying the small figure dressed in a faded beige t-shirt and patched shorts. The Panama hat he always wore cast a shadow over his face, but couldn't hide the surprise that crossed his features. "Are you hungry, son?" "Yes, sir." "Yes, it's been 3 days since I've had a proper meal," the boy replied, lowering his head. "But I'm not a beggar. I work as a shoeshine boy over on the corner. It's just that this week, hardly anyone showed up." Something in the determination of those words struck a long dormant chord in Walter's chest. After decades building his business empire, he'd developed a shell of coldness that kept any display of weakness or need at bay. But there was something different about this boy. "What's your name?" "Ethan, sir, Ethan Miller." Walter pushed the plate toward the boy without a word. Ethan hesitated for a moment, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. "Are you sure, sir? I can wait until you're done." "Go ahead. I wasn't that hungry anyway." The boy approached the empty chair and began eating slowly, savoring each bite as if it were a precious gift. Walter watched in silence, noticing how Ethan made an effort to keep his manners despite his obvious hunger. "Debbie, bring another plate just like this one," Walter called to the restaurant worker, who was watching the scene with disapproval. "Mr. Thompson, you know we can't let these street kids hang around bothering the customers," the woman murmured, trying to sound discreet. "He's not bothering anyone. And bring a lemonade too." While they waited for the meal, Walter found himself asking questions he'd never normally ask a stranger, much less a child. "Where do you live, Ethan?" "Over in Creekside, sir, with my grandma Margaret. She's been feeling sick, so I have to work to buy her medicine." "What about your parents?" The boy paused for a moment, a flicker of sadness crossing his young face. "I don't have parents, sir. My grandma raised me since I was little. She says she found me when I was a baby." Walter felt a tightness in his chest at those words. There was something familiar about the story, though he couldn't place it. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. When Ethan finished eating, he insisted on writing down the cost of the meal in a crumpled notebook he pulled from his pocket. "What's that?" Walter asked, intrigued. "It's my debt book, sir. I write down everything people do for me, so I don't forget to pay them back when I can." Walter took the little notebook and flipped through the pages filled with childish but careful handwriting. There were notes about medicine someone had given his grandmother, used shoes a neighbor had donated, small favors people had done over the months. "Ethan, let me take you home. I'd like to meet your grandmother." The boy hesitated, as if assessing whether he could trust this elegant gentleman. "You don't need to trouble yourself, sir. It's a bit far from here." "No problem. My car is right there." The drive to Creekside took about 20 minutes. Walter steered his black sedan through the narrow streets of the working-class neighborhood, observing the modest houses and small yards where children played in the dust. Ethan pointed the way with the familiarity of someone who had walked those streets countless times. "It's right there, sir. The blue house with the wooden door." Walter parked in front of a small but well-kept building. The iron gate was open, revealing a tiny yard where a few plants struggled to survive in recycled cans used as pots. "Grandma Margaret, I brought a visitor." A woman in her 60s appeared in the doorway, leaning on a makeshift cane. Her thin face bore the marks of time and hardship, but her eyes held a liveliness that age hadn't erased. When she saw Walter, however, her expression changed completely. "Good Lord," she whispered, bringing her free hand to her chest. "Mr. Walter." "Mrs. Margaret?" Walter felt as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. Do I know you? Know me? Mr. Walter, I worked in your house for 15 years. I took care of your boy Christopher from the time he was little until... The woman's voice faltered, and she had to steady herself against the doorframe. Ethan rushed to support her, confused by what was happening. Grandma, are you feeling sick? No, my dear. It's just been so long since I've seen this gentleman. Walter felt the weight of memories he'd tried to bury resurfacing. Margaret Miller had been the nanny to his only son, Christopher, during the hardest years of his life. When his wife died in a car accident, it was Margaret who cared for the boy while he drowned himself in work to escape the pain. Mrs. Margaret, may I come in? We need to talk. Inside, the house was small but spotless. The old furniture showed signs of wear, but everything was in its place. On the living room wall, a framed photo showed Ethan as a baby in Margaret's arms. Ethan, go play outside for a bit. I need to talk with this gentleman, the grandmother asked, her voice trembling. But Grandma, what if you feel sick? I won't, sweetheart. Go on. When they were alone, silence hung between them like a heavy curtain. Walter studied the woman who had cared for his son with a devotion he himself had never managed to show. Mrs. Margaret, I know what you're going to say, Mr. Walter, and you don't need to apologize. What happened, happened. But I must. I fired you unfairly. I accused you of stealing that money when I knew you'd never do such a thing. Margaret sighed, smoothing the worn fabric of her dress. You were suffering so much back then. You lost your wife, then Christopher rebelled and left home. It was easier to blame someone than to face the pain. That doesn't excuse what I did. I found out 2 days later it was the new cleaning lady who took the money. But my pride wouldn't let me take it back. And how is Christopher? Margaret asked, changing the subject. Walter's face twisted in deep sorrow. Christopher has been gone 12 years, Mrs. Margaret. Motorcycle accident. The woman covered her face, her eyes filling with tears. Dear God, that beautiful boy. I always hoped you two would make peace one day. He tried. The last time we spoke, he said he wanted to talk to me about something important, but I was in the middle of a big deal and told him to wait. That later never came. Margaret struggled to her feet and walked to an old trunk in the corner of the room. From there, she pulled out a shoebox tied with string. Mr. Walter, there's something you need to know about Ethan. The boy. What about him? When I found Ethan on my doorstep, he came with this. Margaret opened the box and pulled out some papers yellowed with time. Among them, a birth certificate and a sealed letter. His mother left this. She said if anything ever happened to her, I should give it to the child's father, but she never told me who the father was. Walter took the papers with trembling hands. The birth certificate showed that Ethan had been born exactly 9 months after the last conversation he'd had with Christopher. The mother's name was Amanda Wilson Johnson. Amanda, Walter whispered. Christopher mentioned that girl once, said he was dating her but that I wouldn't approve because she came from a simple family. She showed up here pregnant and desperate, Mr. Walter, said the baby's father that he wasn't around anymore, that his family was very important and would never accept her or the baby. Walter felt as if the world was spinning around him. He opened the letter with shaking fingers, immediately recognizing Christopher's handwriting. Dad, I know you won't like what I'm about to say, but you need to know. I'm dating a girl named Amanda. She's special, Dad. Not like the others you always wanted me to be with. She's poor, but she has a heart bigger than the world. And now she's expecting my child. Our grandchild, Dad. I know you'll be angry, but I hope one day you'll understand that love doesn't care about social class. If anything happens to me, please take care of them. They'll need you. With love, Christopher. The tears Walter had held back for so many years finally found their way out. Margaret watched in silence, understanding the weight of this revelation. Mrs. Margaret, Ethan he's your grandson, Mr. Walter, and I've been taking care of him like my own son because I promised Amanda I would. Where's his mother? Margaret's expression grew even sadder. Amanda didn't survive the birth, Mr. Walter. She was a fragile girl, and she didn't have the means for proper medical care. When she knew she wouldn't make it, She made me promise to look after Ethan and that if you ever showed up, I'd tell you the truth. Walter was on his feet now, pacing back and forth in the small room, trying to process everything he'd just learned. Why didn't you ever come to me? Why didn't you tell me? And you would have believed me, after the way you sent me away from your house? Besides, I saw how you treated your own son. I was afraid you'd do the same to Ethan. At that moment, Ethan came running into the house. Grandma, there are some boys outside messing with Mr. Walter's car. I told them he was my friend and they left. The boy stopped when he saw the adults with serious expressions and Margaret's red eyes. Did something happen? Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Mr. Walter, I think it's best if you leave for today. Ethan and I need to talk. Walter nodded, still in shock. Sitting with this discovery for a few hours would give him time to gather his thoughts. Ethan, it was a pleasure meeting you. Can I come back tomorrow? Of course, Mr. Walter. You can come whenever you want. Grandma likes having visitors. On the drive back home, Walter moved on autopilot, his mind racing in 1,000 different directions. How had he not seen the resemblance? Ethan's dark eyes were just like Christopher's at that age. The determined way he spoke, the polite stubbornness, even the way he held his pencil when writing in his notebook. Arriving at his empty mansion in the upscale part of town, Walter went straight to the study where he kept Christopher's memories. He opened drawers he hadn't touched in years, searching for photos of his son as a child. The resemblance was undeniable. That night, Walter couldn't sleep. He stayed up late looking at old photos, wondering how many opportunities he'd missed, how many times he'd chosen work over family, how many chances to know that grandson who'd grown up just a few miles away, struggling while he accumulated wealth that meant nothing without someone to share it. The next morning, he returned to Margaret's house carrying grocery bags and medicine he'd bought at the downtown pharmacy. "Mr. Thompson, what's all this?" asked Ethan, helping with the bags. "Just things you might need." "But sir, I already told you I'll pay for everything when I grow up. You don't have to bring so much." Margaret watched from the doorway, a sad smile on her lips. "Ethan, put those things in the kitchen. I need to talk to Mr. Thompson." When they were alone in the living room, Margaret got straight to the point. "You want to tell him, don't you?" "He has the right to know who he is, Mrs. Margaret, and I have the right to know my grandson." "I understand, but Ethan is a special boy, Mr. Thompson. He grew up knowing he didn't have much, but he always appreciated every little thing he got. If you come here telling him he's heir to a fortune, it could mess with his head. So what do you suggest? That you win his affection first. Show him you're someone he can trust. Ethan is wary of strangers, but once he cares for someone, he's loyal forever." Walter agreed. Over the next few weeks, he began visiting Margaret's house every day. At first, Ethan kept a respectful distance, but gradually he warmed up to the elegant man who seemed genuinely interested in his life. "Mr. Thompson, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Ethan." "Why do you come here every day? Don't you have family?" The question hit Walter like a knife. How could he explain to a child that he'd had a family, but his stubbornness and pride had destroyed it? "I did have a family, but I lost the people I loved most." "Did they go to heaven?" "They did, Ethan. And now I keep thinking how different things could have been if I'd been a better person." The boy was quiet for a moment, as if processing that. "You know, Mr. Thompson, Grandma always says the people we love never really leave. They stay right here," he said, pointing to his chest. "That's why when I do something good, I feel like my mum is watching and proud of me." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, back to the story. Those simple words from a child touched Walter more deeply than years of therapy or advice from friends. It was as if Christopher was speaking through his son. But the peace of those days was shattered when Margaret began feeling worse more often. The medicine Walter brought helped for a few days, but soon the pain and weakness returned. "Grandma, you need to see a doctor," Ethan insisted, worried. "Doctors are expensive, sweetheart. The medicine Mr. Thompson brings helps." "Mrs. Margaret, I can pay for a private doctor," Walter offered. "No, Mr. Thompson. You've already done so much." But when Margaret fainted in the kitchen while making lunch, there was no debate. Walter rushed her to the city's private hospital, Ethan clutching his hand in terror. "Is she gonna be okay, Mr. Thompson?" "She will, Ethan. The doctors will take good care of her." The tests revealed that Margaret had severe anemia and uncontrolled high blood pressure, conditions that could be treated but required constant medical supervision and more expensive medications. "Doctor, how much will the treatment cost?" Walter asked the doctor. "Well, with the medications and monthly checkups, it'll be around $1,500 a month." Ethan, who was listening to the conversation, grabbed Walter's arm. "Mr. Thompson, I'll work more hours. I'll shine shoes in the morning and the afternoon. I'll get the money." "Ethan, no, sir. I won't let Grandma get sick because of money. I promise I'll pay you back when I grow up." The desperation in the boy's voice broke Walter's heart. How could he explain that money wasn't an issue when Ethan still didn't know who he really was? "Ethan, you don't need to worry about this. I'll take care of your grandmother's treatment." "But sir, that's a lot of money. How will I ever pay you back?" "You don't have to pay me anything. I'm doing this because you both are special to me." That night, while Margaret rested at the hospital, Walter took Ethan out to dinner at a restaurant downtown. The boy was quiet, clearly still worried. "Ethan, can I tell you a story?" "Sure, Mr. Thompson. Many years ago I had a son. His name was Christopher, and he was about your age when he lost his mother. I was so sad and busy with work that I didn't take care of him properly. When he grew up, we argued a lot, and he left home. One day, he wanted to talk to me about something important, but I said I was too busy. Not long after, he had an accident, and he was gone." Ethan stopped eating and looked at Walter with his big, serious eyes. "Do you regret it?" "Every single day, Ethan. That's why now, when I meet special people like you and your grandmother, I don't want to miss the chance to do good. My grandma always says we can't change the past, but we can do things differently from now on. Your grandmother is very wise. Mr. Thompson, can I ask you something that might be a little personal?" "Go ahead." "Are you very rich?" The question caught Walter off guard. Ethan asked it with such simplicity, no malice, just curiosity. "I am, Ethan. I have more money than I need." "And does that make you happy?" Walter was silent for a long moment. How could he explain to a child that he'd spent his whole life accumulating wealth to fill a void money could never touch? "No, Ethan. Money doesn't bring happiness. Sometimes it even gets in the way because we worry too much about making more and forget the important things. Like what happened with Christopher." "Exactly." Ethan chewed thoughtfully for a few minutes before speaking again. "You know, Mr. Thompson, ever since you started visiting us, Grandma's been happier. She smiles more, tells old stories. I think you're good for her." "And for you? Am I good for you too?" The boy smiled, one of those pure smiles only children can give. "Yeah, it's nice having someone to talk to besides Grandma, and you explain hard things in a way I understand." That night, Walter made a decision that would change everything. When he got home, he went to his office and took a series of documents from the safe: wills, powers of attorney, property deeds. It was time to put his life in order. The next morning, he picked Ethan up at the hospital to visit Margaret, who was already doing much better. "Mrs. Margaret, I need to talk to you and Ethan. It's important." "What is it, Mr. Thompson? Did something happen?" "Nothing bad, but it's time to tell Ethan the truth." Margaret looked at the boy, who watched the two adults with curiosity. "Ethan, come sit next to Grandma. There's something important you need to know." "Am I in trouble?" "No, sweetheart, you're not." Walter pulled up a chair and sat facing Ethan. "Ethan, remember when I told you about my son Christopher?" "Yes, I remember. He had a girlfriend when he was young, a girl named Amanda." The boy nodded, unsure where this was going. "That girl got pregnant, Ethan. But before my son could marry her and take responsibility for the child, he had the accident." "That's so sad, Mr. Walter." "Amanda had the baby alone but didn't survive childbirth. Before she passed, she asked a very special person to care for the child." Ethan looked at Margaret, whose eyes were filled with tears. "That special person was your grandmother, Ethan, and you're my grandson." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan looked from Walter to Margaret, trying to process what he'd just heard. "Grandma, is it true?" "Yes, my love. You're Christopher and Amanda's son. But then, you're really my grandfather." "I am, Ethan, and I'm sorry it took me so long to find you." The boy stayed quiet for a long time, fidgeting with his hands like he did when he was nervous. "Does that mean I'll have to go live in your big house?" The question caught Walter off guard. He'd imagined many possible reactions, but not this concern. "Why would you think that?" "Because if I'm really your grandson, and you're rich, maybe Grandma won't have to take care of me anymore." Margaret sat on the bed and hugged Ethan tightly. "Ethan Miller, you listen to me. I've raised you since you were a baby, and you'll always be my grandson in my heart, no matter who else comes into our lives." "But Grandma, if Mr. Walter is my real grandfather," "Ethan," Walter interrupted, "family isn't just about blood. Family is who loves you, who takes care of you, who's there for you. Your grandmother Margaret has done everything for you that I should have done. She's your real family. And you. I'd love to be part of your family too, if you'll let me. But I don't want to take you away from your life. I want to add to it." Ethan looked at the two adults, watching him expectantly. "Can I keep living with Grandma?" "Of course you can," Walter replied. "And can I keep working as a shoeshine boy?" "Ethan, you don't have to work anymore. I can give you everything you need." "But I like working. It makes me feel useful." Walter smiled, recognizing the same determination Christopher had. "Then you can keep working, but maybe we can think about other things too, like school." "I do go to school, sir. I'm in 4th grade." "I know. But what if you could go to a better school? With more resources?" Ethan grew thoughtful. "Could Grandma come too?" "Ethan, sweetheart, don't worry about me. Think about what's best for you," Margaret said. "Mrs. Margaret," Walter interjected, "I was thinking of a different idea." "What do you mean?" "How about if I bought a bigger house right here in your neighborhood? A house where we could all live together?" Ethan's smile lit up the whole room. "Really? You'd live near us?" "Not near. With you. If you want, of course." Margaret and Ethan exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. "Mr. Walter," Ethan said with all the seriousness a 10-year-old could muster, "I accept being your grandson, but with some conditions." Walter almost laughed at the solemnity, but respected how important this was to the boy. "What conditions?" "First, Grandma Margaret stays my main grandma." "Agreed." "Second, I keep working and writing down in my notebook everything you do for me." "Ethan, no sir, this is important. I want you to know I'll pay you back when I'm older." "All right, agreed." "Third, you have to teach me about my father. I want to know what he was like, the things he enjoyed." Walter felt a lump in his throat. "I accept, and I promise to tell you everything, even the hard parts." "Fourth, you can't be sad by yourself anymore. If you're sad, you have to tell me your grandma." "How do you know I get sad by myself?" "Because I see it in your eyes. Sometimes they look just like mine did when I missed my mom, even though I never knew her." That simple yet profound observation from Ethan left Walter speechless. How could a child read the emotions of an adult who had spent his whole life hiding his feelings so well? "I accept that condition too." "Then it's settled," said Ethan, holding out his little hand to shake Walter's. "Now you're officially my grandpa." Margaret watched the scene with a mix of joy and nostalgia. She had raised Ethan alone for 10 years, facing financial struggles and health issues, but always with abundant love. Now seeing the boy gain a bigger family was a blessing she had never dared to imagine. "Mrs. Margaret," Walter said, turning to her, "I'll never be able to thank you enough for what you've done for him, for us. Mr. Walter, Ethan was the joy of my life. Taking care of him was never a sacrifice. It was a gift. Even so, I want you to know that from now on, neither of you will go without. And if you'd like to stop working..." "Working? I haven't worked in 2 years, Mr. Walter. The cleaning jobs I do are just to keep myself busy at home." "Then you can stop for good if you'd like." In the days that followed, life for the three of them settled into a new routine. Walter arranged for Margaret's discharge and began looking for a house in the neighborhood that would suit their new family. Ethan insisted on staying at the local public school, but agreed to take private tutoring in the afternoons. "Grandpa," Ethan said one afternoon as they worked on homework together, "can I ask you something about my dad?" "You can ask me anything you want." "Did he like studying?" "Very much. He was a smart boy just like you, but he was also very stubborn." "Am I stubborn?" "Yes, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Stubbornness, when used for good, becomes determination." "Do you think he'd be proud of me?" Walter stopped writing and looked at the boy who carried so many traits of his lost son. "Ethan, I'm absolutely certain your father would be very proud of you. You're brave, hardworking, and kind-hearted, everything a father would want in a son. And my mom, Amanda? Your mother would be proud too. From what Mrs. Margaret has told me about her, she was a very good person. One day I want to visit where she's buried. We can do that when you're ready." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot for those of us just starting out. Now continuing. The adjustment wasn't without challenges. Ethan sometimes felt overwhelmed by his new reality, especially when other boys in the neighborhood started treating him differently after finding out he had gotten rich. "Grandpa Walter," he said one afternoon, using the nickname he'd naturally adopted, "the boys at school are saying I'm not like them anymore." "What do you think about that?" "I think they're wrong. I'm still the same Ethan, I just have a bigger family now." "Very well said. And if they keep saying it, I'll show them I haven't changed by acting the same as always with them." And that's exactly what Ethan did. He kept playing the same games, helping classmates who struggled, and sharing his lunch when someone forgot theirs. Gradually, things returned to normal. But the biggest challenge was yet to come. During one of Margaret's routine checkups, the doctors found something concerning in her blood work. They ordered more detailed tests, and a week later, they called Walter in for a private conversation. "Mr. Thompson, the results indicate that Mrs. Margaret has a serious heart condition. She'll need surgery." "What kind of surgery?" "A valve replacement. It's a delicate procedure, but with good chances of success." "And if she doesn't have the surgery?" "Without it, she has at most 2 years to live. With the surgery, she could live normally for many more years." Walter left the office with a heavy heart. How could he break this to Ethan? The boy had already lost his parents, and now he might lose the only mother he'd ever known. When he got home, he found Ethan helping Margaret prepare dinner, the two of them laughing at some joke she'd told. "The man of the house is here," Margaret announced cheerfully. Ethan set another plate at the table. During dinner, Walter tried to act normal, but Ethan noticed something was off. "Grandpa Walter, you're kinda quiet today. Did something happen?" "No, Ethan, just thinking about some work stuff." Later, when Ethan went to bed, Walter told Margaret about his talk with the doctor. "Mr. Walter, I've been expecting news like this. I've felt my heart struggling for a while now. Mrs. Margaret, you're going to have the surgery. I'll arrange for the best surgeon in the country." "What if it goes wrong?" "It won't. But if it does, promise me you'll take care of Ethan like he's your own son." "Mrs. Margaret, you don't even have to ask. Ethan is my grandson, and I'll always look after him. But you'll get better and be here to see him grow up, get married, have kids." The next morning, Ethan noticed the adults whispering and stopping when he got close. "Is there something going on you don't want me to know?" Margaret and Walter exchanged glances. They'd agreed to tell Ethan the truth. "Ethan, sit down. We need to talk to you. Is Grandma sick again?" "I have a little problem with my heart, sweetheart. I need to have surgery." "Is surgery serious?" "Yes, Ethan, but the doctors said I have a good chance of getting better." "What if it doesn't work?" The question everyone dreaded had been asked with the brutal simplicity only children possess. "Ethan," Walter said, "let's stay positive. Your grandma is strong and the doctors are very good. But I want to know, if it doesn't work, what happens to me?" Margaret held the boy's hands. "Ethan, you have a family now. Grandpa Walter will take care of you no matter what." "But I don't want Grandma to go." "I don't want to go either, sweetheart. I'll fight hard to stay here with you." The surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks later. During that time, Ethan became even more attentive to Margaret, helping with everything, and insisting she rest more. "Ethan, you don't have to watch me all the time," she said, laughing. "Yes, I do." Grandpa Walter said rest is important before surgery. Walter watched his dedication with a heavy heart. Ethan had matured years in just a few months. The responsibility of having a sick grandmother and the discovery of a larger family had turned the mischievous boy into a worried little adult. The night before the surgery, Ethan couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in bed until Walter appeared at his door. "Can I come in?" "Sure, Grandpa." Walter sat on the edge of the bed. "Can't sleep?" "I'm scared." "Being scared is normal, Ethan. I'm scared too." "Really?" "Of course. Your grandma means a lot to me too now. Grandpa Walter, can I tell you something?" "Of course. Sometimes I wonder if bad things happen to me because I don't have parents. Like I'm unlucky." Walter felt his heart break at that confession. "Ethan, you're not unlucky. You're special. Look at how many people love you. Mrs. Margaret, me, your school friends, Mrs. Debbie from the restaurant." "That's true. And do you know why you're so special? Because even through hard times, you've stayed a good person. You still help others, you still smile. I learned that from Grandma Margaret. And now you're teaching me too." "Teaching you what?" "That real family is who chooses to stand by us." Ethan hugged Walter tightly. "Grandpa Walter, promise you won't leave no matter what happens." "I promise, Ethan. I promise I'll never abandon you." On the day of the surgery, Ethan insisted on going to the hospital. He sat in the waiting room holding Walter's hand, both silent, lost in their own prayers and hopes. The surgery lasted 6 hours. When the doctor finally appeared in the waiting room, Ethan jumped from his chair. "Doctor, how is she?" "The surgery was a success, Ethan. Your grandmother is doing well." Ethan collapsed into tears of relief in Walter's arms. During Margaret's recovery, the family dynamic solidified for good. Walter had sold the mansion and bought a cozy, single-story home in the same neighborhood where Ethan had grown up. The new house had 3 bedrooms, a big backyard where Ethan could play, and a small garden Margaret dreamed of tending once she fully recovered. "Grandpa Walter," Ethan said as he helped arrange the furniture, "this house is perfect." "You really like it?" "I love it. It's big enough for us to be a family, but not so big we'll lose each other." That simple observation showed Walter just how naturally wise Ethan was, far beyond his years. With Margaret recovering well and the family settled, Walter began thinking about how to use his life experience for something bigger. It was Ethan who gave him the idea that would change everything. "Grandpa Walter, can I suggest something?" "Of course." "At school there are lots of kids who struggle like I used to. Couldn't we help them too?" "How do you think we could do that?" "I don't know. Maybe a place where they could eat when they're hungry? Or someone to help with homework?" The seed Ethan planted grew in Walter's mind. Within weeks he had developed a full plan, a community center that would offer meals, tutoring, and activities for the neighborhood kids. "Ethan, what do you think of this idea?" The boy studied the sketches and blueprints Walter had made. "It's amazing, Grandpa, but there's one thing I'd like to suggest." "What?" "That the kids could help in some way too, so they don't feel like they're just receiving charity." "How do you mean?" "I don't know. The older ones could help the younger ones with homework. Whoever knows something different could teach the others. Everyone contributing somehow." Walter looked at that 10-year-old boy with growing admiration. Ethan had instinctively understood something many adults take years to learn: the importance of dignity and active participation. "Ethan, do you want to be my partner in this project?" "Partner?" "That's right. You'd be responsible for listening to the other kids and telling me what they need." "Really?" "Of course, after all, who better than a child to understand other children?" The community center was built in 6 months. Ethan had a hand in every decision, from the wall colors to organizing activities. On opening day, half the neighborhood came to see the project. "Everyone," said Ethan, stepping onto a crate to speak into the microphone, "I want to thank everybody who helped build this place, especially my Grandpa Walter and Grandma Margaret, who taught me that family is whoever chooses to care for each other. The center quickly became the heart of the neighborhood. Kids went there every day after school to eat, do homework, and take part in activities. Ethan had become a sort of natural leader, always attentive to his friends' needs. "Grandpa Walter," he said one afternoon, "Olivia mentioned her mom needs work. What kind of work can she do? She's a really good cook, makes delicious desserts. How about we offer her a job in the center's kitchen?" "Really? She'd be so happy." And so the project grew organically. Olivia's mom was hired as a cook. Mason's dad, an electrician, was brought in to teach a vocational course for the teens. Mrs. Emily, who knew how to sew, started teaching crafts to the girls. What had begun as an assistance project turned into a mutual support network where everyone contributed their skills and got what they needed. "You know, Ethan," Walter said one night as they reviewed the day's activities, "I think we've found the real meaning of wealth." "How so?" "True wealth isn't how much money you have in the bank. It's how many people you can help be happy. And how many people choose to be in your life too." "Exactly." Ethan opened his old debt notebook, now repurposed as a planner where he recorded all the center's activities and each child's progress. "Grandpa Walter, look here," he said, showing a page. "Olivia learned to read fluently. Mason passed his grade. Emily got a scholarship. And you, Ethan, what have you gained?" The boy thought for a moment. "I've learned that even when we lose important people, we can always gain others, and that taking care of others makes us feel truly useful." "You've grown so much, grandson. You too. You smile more now." It was true. Walter had discovered happiness wasn't in accumulating things, but in sharing life with people who truly mattered. At 73, he was living his best years. A year after the center's opening, Ethan made a surprising suggestion. "Grandpa Walter, what if we threw a party to celebrate the center's anniversary?" "Great idea. What kind of party do you have in mind?" "One where every family brings something to share, and where everyone tells a good story about what's happened here." The party was a success. Over 200 people came, each bringing a dish, a song, or a story. Ethan climbed onto his makeshift crate again to speak. "Folks, a year ago, Grandpa Walter and I had a crazy idea: to create a place where no one would go hungry and everyone could learn new things. Now, seeing you all here, I realize we've built more than that. We've built a big family where everyone looks out for each other." The applause was deafening. Margaret, now fully recovered, watched with proud tears. "Ethan," she whispered to Walter, "listen to how well that boy speaks. He's going to be someone important in life." "He already is, Mrs. Margaret. He's completely changed my life. And mine too, gave me a reason to keep fighting." That night, after everyone had left and the family was gathered in the living room, Ethan asked a question that caught Walter off guard. "Grandpa Walter, do you think my dad would be proud of what we're doing?" Walter looked at that boy, who carried the best of the son he had lost, multiplied by the love and values Margaret had planted in him. "Ethan, I'm absolutely certain your father would be proud. You managed to do in 1 year what took me a lifetime to learn, that true wealth lies in using what we have to do good. And my mom, Amanda, your mother too, she gave her life so you could come into this world and look at all the people you've already helped find happiness." Ethan opened his notebook and wrote something down. "What are you writing?" "I'm writing that today I understood something important." "What?" "That family isn't just who brought us into the world. Family is everyone who chooses to stand by our side and who we choose to care for too." Margaret got up from the couch and hugged Ethan tightly. "My boy, you're the most precious thing that's ever happened to me." "You're precious to me too, Grandma. And so is Grandpa Walter." "And you both are precious to me," Walter added, joining the hug. In that moment, the three of them understood they had built something far greater than a traditional family. They had created a chosen family, rooted in love, mutual care, and the daily decision to be there for one another. Outside, the town of Santa Barbara carried on with its quiet nightlife. But inside that simple, cozy home, 3 hearts had found the true meaning of the word home. The end. And what about you, dear listener? What did you think of this story of love, loss, and reunion? Do Do you think Walter made the right choices in choosing to live a simpler life with his grandson? Tell us in the comments which part touched your heart the most and share your own experiences of chosen family. Don't forget to leave a like if the story moved you, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories like this one.